This ends here. This ends here because I don't allow anybody to try to control how I show up and how I exist and what I wear. So why would I put my own looks and self in the hands of anyone? Why would I put how I look in the hands of men? Live my life by who thinks I'm attractive and who doesn't? This is the Daily Humans podcast. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nina.
And welcome back to another episode in daylight saving time, but on my end at least. Yes.
I wonder.
I actually.
No, go ahead.
There you go.
I wonder if you're the first one to bring about daylight savings, because I think you might be actually. Which, listeners, if you're only listening into this right now, we're having a little bit of a difference this time around, which is very exciting. Ashley, we're recording during the daytime in Ashley's time zone in Australia, and on my end it's still daytime, just a lot earlier. But we're excited. I couldn't sleep. We're here. We hopped on. Ashley was a doll. I can't believe I used that. Ashley was a doll, and she just decided to jump on and do this podcast a little bit earlier. But she's just amazing. We love her.
Normally we record where it's night time for me, and then it's morning for Nina. That's what you normally see, and it's about 3:30 here at the moment. So changing it up. Change is nice.
Yes,
I like it.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely.
Nina's going to be the energy of the podcast today. Definitely not having a good mental health day. So Nina's going to be catching that energy today for you all.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
She woke up at 4:30 in the morning, revved, saturated in all this good energy.
That's more than fine, honestly. I'm glad that you share that, actually, because I think that it's really good to be able to discuss mental health openly. We discuss it all the time, and if you're a regular, this shouldn't be anything new. But I think it is great that you mention it. And like Ashley has said, I will be the stream of energy. I have a little bit too much, which is why, also in due in part why we hopped on a little bit earlier. But it's really funny, actually, because we've spoken a lot before about how when we wake up in the morning, sometimes we have songs pop up into our heads. And this morning, before we got on, and as I was running over to do my makeup, I was like, I don't know if I should sing it. I'm just going to go ahead, and I hope I don't sound terrible. I had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. It was one of those mornings, and it's funny because when I told Ashley about it, she was like, I feel like this is just one of those, I don't know how you put it, but in my brain, it kind of registered it. It can be like a form of communication. And I kind of love it. I'm not going to lie. If it's not a negative song or like over like a really big manic like episode of just thoughts, I think these songs are really nice. It's like being tuned into the frequency of the universe, like universation. That's actually nice. We should have like a radio channel that's titled that. Welcome to the universe. These are the songs streaming right now.
The universe is just a big old Spotify, but a better version and free.
Yeah.
Which is really, really nice. I woke up this morning to, oh gosh, what was it again? I sang it to you before we started, Nina. What was it again?
My heart will go. Was it my heart?
Oh, yeah.
No. You raise me up.
No, you raise me up. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. That's the song I woke up to this morning.
Yeah.
So that was a nice little adding to the start of today. I thought, oh yeah, so which version are we going for here? Because I always go to Apple Music and type
Mhm.
in the song just to see if there's a message or something behind it. And I thought to myself, okay, there's like 5 different artists that sing this song, so which one are we going for? You know who I think I had in my head? I think I had Il Divo. I think I had them.
You know Il
Their version.
Divo?
Yeah. Yeah, I know Il
What?
Divo. Yeah.
What? I
That was
didn't
my reaction
know.
when she said to me that she knows Delta Goodrem. I was like, "What? You know Delta Goodrem?" I thought she just stayed, like, interstate, like, she stayed, like, in Australia. I didn't know anyone. I'm glad that people know her on the outside. She's a great singer, but yeah, I know Il Divo.
That's amazing. I had no idea like, I know that people know Il Divo, but they're just not really talk. I really need to stop saying that, but really, I just don't hear a lot of people talk about them.
No, you
So
don't. No, you
the fact that you know who they are is, I love it. I love it. Yeah, major Il Divo fans over here. Well, I am.
don't.
My mother is as well, but that's
Yeah,
unnecessary
my mother.
information.
That's where I found out about them, is my mum is a really big
Oh,
fan of them. And then I heard them, and I just what you said, no one really talks about them, like, no
yeah.
one really knows about them. So now you do. We're just passing along the name. I don't know if they still release music. I think they still do, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're great.
Yeah, they are insanely talented guys. My goodness, Il Divo.
Do you
Who
think
knew that?
Il Divo? I do think that, songs represent messages from the universe or people that have
Mhm.
passed on, because it's so fascinating when music has popped up for me, because it's such a common thing that happens. So when it pops up in certain different areas and the song resembles something that's currently happening, I'm just kind of sitting there reading the lyrics going, "Okay, thank you for that. At least you told it to me in song and not through some learning lesson. You gave it to me through music." And I'd rather that, to be honest. If you think that I shouldn't be around someone, tell me in a song.
Mm.
What song would relate to "Don't be around this person,"
Move, get out the way, get out the way, get out.
or "You're toxic." I'm slipping "Toxic" by Britney Spears.
Yes, yes.
I would love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Just to say too, there is one particular song that always pops up. You can't say that this isn't like a something beyond yourself, because there's one particular song by Shannon Knoll, and
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys, especially Aussies, know this song, but it's called "Don't Give Up."
Oh, okay.
And that particular song, or every single time, plays when I'm in a certain state of mind, every single time,
Mm.
because the chorus is, "Don't give up now because you still have people. Don't give up now. You're needed." Like, it literally, the chorus is just, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
can hear, and he sings it with someone as well. So she sings the chorus and he sings the verses and stuff. And I think this song is talking about his own struggles as well. And
Mm.
then, yeah, it's a good song.
Mhm.
It's a really good song.
I'll
Yeah,
check it out.
every single time. Mm.
Yeah.
It's very sad though, I'm not gonna lie, it's very somber.
Mm. Okay.
It hits a few feels
Yeah.
when you listen to it, just to say.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the it's the sad playlist song. You can add it to your sad playlist.
Okay.
We all have
Got
a
it.
sad playlist. Who doesn't? Who
Yeah.
seriously doesn't?
Yeah.
In the moment when you're feeling somber, the somber playlist comes out. Yeah.
100%. And I love that you always give all of us so many new music recommendations or even older songs that we forget. I love that because
Mm.
Ashley has reintroduced me to the Lighthouse family. I want to say that's their
Mm.
name. That
Mm.
sings the song "High," and
Mm.
it's just every time I hear that song now, I think of you, Ashley, and I can't tell you how much I've loved that song growing up. And even when we did that episode where I talked about not being able to have a lot of like new music come in, Ashley has sent me amazing amounts of music recently, and I love it. Thank you so much. I love going through our episodes, and there's like, oh, listen to this or listen to that. I just love it. So thank you.
You're welcome. A lot of independent artists I've sent her from TikTok. So many
Beautiful
talented
ones.
people on there. If you're looking for new music, like I said in the last episode, there's plenty of people on there
Yeah,
that want to be seen. So see
yeah,
them,
yeah.
you know, see them. Yeah.
100%. I think it was a big lesson for me personally to realize that there are still amazing musicians out there. There is immense talent out there that hasn't died, that hasn't
Yeah.
gone away. I just need to have my perspective shifted or redirected in a different area. And I love that. So thank you for introducing me to new people. I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
There's nothing wrong with it because if you think about it, the advertisement, you consistently see the same people because
Yeah,
agencies will push them forward in the algorithm,
right.
push them forward for advertisement and
Yeah,
marketing, which look, no fault. That's
yeah,
just what they do. But you know, it's advocation that there are independent artists out there that aren't attached to an agency. And I think a lot of people know what it is to take the steps to try to be seen and have your work seen. I posted a TikTok recently about it, about artists and creators, basically. Along those lines, creative people want to be seen for their work. So if we all know what this is like, see them. You know, if you don't vibe with it, that's all right. You'll find people that you vibe with. Other people will vibe with them. You know,
I agree.
plenty of people to see.
Yeah. And if I may add to that as well, real quick, because I thought about it last night and this morning as well. I think it's actually really, I'm glad that we're having more of the perception of seeing more indie artists or like independent artists, things like that, because I think it's really sad that we don't get that the market essentially is overrun by media on all levels by things that are pushed by major companies. I think that that's quite unfortunate. And obviously, they have a monopoly over it for a reason. They have first dibs. But
Mm,
at the same time, like Ashley has stated, there are so many people who want to be seen, who put their work out there and want to be appreciated or received. And it's a little bit, at least to me, irritating to see how many people can get drowned out in the
yeah.
mass media marketing.
Mm. Well, we talked about Mike um, po- Pose
Posner?
Poser Posner. Yeah, we talked about him in one of the episodes. Was it the last one, the one before? One of them. How he was shelved, as they call it. He was put on the shelf and used just for creation, like a writer. He was used as a writer to create songs for other artists that they wanted to push forward. So, you know, we as communities and people, we have the power to, you know, help support each other. So, this is a great opportunity to help indie artists, independent artists, creators, art, just people that are wanting to stay in the line of their dream to help push them forward where they want to go. You know, I don't like the whole control element that people really just solidify themselves in, where they think, well, we have the power, but you take that power and you use it in such an egotistical, controlling way, and saying, well, I can ruin them with my power. You're a villain. You're being a villain in a movie. You'll be in a movie if you keep that villainizing act up.
Hmm.
Um, no, we just support each other. We don't control their pathway. We don't control anything. We just offer that support if we vibe with the energy, we vibe with what they're putting out there, and let the pathway unfold. Whatever's meant to be will be, and you hope for the best. You know, that's just it. But people deserve support.
I
Thank
agree. Absolutely. You put that so perfectly. Thank you, Ashley. I agree 100% to everything you say. Absolutely.
And talking about supportive people, that's just in line with supporting selves with our topic today, our topic of discussion, which is just the journey of evaluation and assessing and realizing. How many of you have taken your healing journeys and discovered things that you literally at not one point in your life ever thought was a possibility to discover because you weren't aware of it? And then when you become aware of it, it's like, wow, I've been doing that my entire life. And there's not one single part of me that couldn't see what it truly was. How, how just shakes like an earthquake when you think about how long you've been holding on to something that doesn't serve your highest good, but everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is teaching you to do it. So you see the normality to it. And then when that image is shown in real light and starts to crumble, and you're like, wow, it doesn't actually have to be like this. That's one of the amazing things I think about healing is the crumbling of structures that don't represent you, don't represent your values, and also are not for your highest good. Touche? She's
Touche.
nodding. It's a touche.
Absolutely.
Touche. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's touche? What's true in German? Or just like
Richtig.
correct or right? What is it? Sorry.
Richtig.
Okay, I probably cannot say that.
Or
Cryptic.
yeah.
Sounded like to me. That's what it sounded like to me. Cryptic.
It's very close, yeah. Richtig. Ja,
Beautiful.
genau. Ja, genau. That's another one. It means yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Ja,
yeah, genau.
genau. Mm-hmm.
I love
You're a
languages.
natural.
You're just saying that. My Aussie accent
No.
gets in the way of the German. See, German to me, it sounds like it reminds me of like a very stern face. It's just very straightforward. That's my perception of it. It's very
Yeah.
straightforward. Auf
Yeah.
Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen. Just that. There's no highs and lows. It's just Auf Wiedersehen.
We do have tschüss. And if you want to make it a little bit more friendly, you can be like tschüssi. Tschüssi.
You just turned it and gave it some waves. You saying it gives it waves.
Oh, true. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. And the center, well, it's actually pretty interesting that I said center. The center of discussion. No, what we wanted to talk about today was decentering men. We talk a lot about self-evolvement, self-evolution, mental health, being your best self. But at the same time, that doesn't come without placing yourself in the middle of what you pay attention to. And like Ashley has said, it is actually insane. The first time I heard about decentering men, I think was about a year or two ago. And that was the first time that I heard it, coupled with decentering work. Both of those things happened around the same exact time. And they both blew massive bombs inside of my head because I was like, oh my God, yeah. I have been putting so much attention on things that are ruled by a man's opinion of me or a man's potential opinion of me, or if I'm attractive, if I'm this, if I'm that, if I'm marketable, if you will, or I'm focused on being a better worker, working harder, doing more things, suffering more for the sake of success, and when those two options, well, the option of not getting into that space, of not living a life centered around both of these topics, it blew a massive just fuse. And I had to sit there for a little while and definitely decompress and restructure and reframe a lot of things. I will say this. I think for me personally, this was most likely about 4 years ago. And this is going to sound absolutely bonkers for probably a lot of people, but it took me to get to that point for me to actually realize. I read a book called Kim Ji-young, born 1984, I believe, or 1982. It's one of the two. And that was the first. Actually, let me preface. The book initially sparked my interest because it had a massive uproar of like feminism in Korea, and people were getting fired. People were being harassed. Celebrities were being harassed for reading this book. And it was a topic of discussion so immense that I was like, I have to read this book. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I have to make sure that I get my hands on it. So when the English translation came out, I read it, and it was absolutely devastating to my life, not because of the contents in the book, because I think the book in and of itself isn't that revolutionary if you're a woman. You're just like, yeah, this is my life, okay? But
Mhm.
it highlighted certain things within. This book focuses on being a woman and living in a patriarchal society in Korea, and being like, the statement of the book essentially is, this is what a Korean woman's life is like. However, reading it, I was like, this is not what a Korean woman's life is like. This is what all of our lives are like, living in a patriarchal society. And reading that book had me thinking of my mother, her plight in the journey of becoming the woman that she is today, my grandmother, and then myself. And that was the first time, and this is the part that like still to this day shakes me a little bit. That is also very much on Decentering Men, is it was the first time that I realized that I am inherently different in society because I'm a woman. Not because something is bad about being a woman, but with the respect that I constantly lived my life goals, making family, all these ideas based around a man's timing, a man's clock, a man's perception
Mm.
of me, rather than I actually am a woman. I'm not in a male brain. I'm in a woman's body. I'm in a woman's life. I'm in a woman's world in my experience of it. Therefore, I don't get certain opportunities. I have to face certain disadvantages because I am a woman. And obviously, I've always known misogyny was a thing, patriarchy was a thing when I was a teen, but these are such broad concepts when you're not really aware of how it affects you in a day to day life. And I wasn't aware up until that point because this book made it so evident how we are suppressed in society. And I was like, wait, what? That time when I was interviewed for a job and I was 18, mind you, and I was asked if I'm married or planning to get married because they don't want me to necessarily have kids that could take me away from the work that I'm doing. Like those are all things that at the time when I experienced them in real life, I thought it was strange, but I didn't really think too deeply about it up until I read the book. And I'm like, oh, it's because they don't want you when you're pregnant or when you're planning on getting pregnant or getting married. So they ask what your marital status is. And as Ashley has said in a previous episode, the Mrs., Mr., the MRS, Mrs., um, those titles, I wanted to say it then. I'm going to say it now. This doesn't exist in the German language. We have different forms of addressing people. But when I learned English for the first time, I always thought that that was really weird, that a man can just have Mr., but a woman's title changes. And it was just, it took a lot of years since then to kind of reframe my life and restructure my life and realize that I essentially, in the patriarchal society that we live in today, have, based on its own limitations, not mine, um, kind of pigeonholed me as a person, as a soul, as a woman, simply because I am a woman. And Decentering Men came at such an important time in my life. I hope it is, if this is the first time you're hearing about it now while listening to this podcast, while watching it, I hope it can unfold a beautiful journey of much better and a healthier life for you as well. But when you initially make that realization that so much of our society is based around not just a man's clock, a man's time, a man's form of energy in terms of how we work and when we work, but also their perception of us, the things we are quote unquote allowed to do. Obviously, that varies depending on country and culture, but alas, there are still restrictions. Um, it's unfortunate. I'll
Mm.
stop here and I'll let you get a word in, Ashley. Like, if I may ask, for you, what has been kind of your moment of like, wow, with the decentering men discussion, was it when you became aware of this topic that things kind of changed and your perception opened, or like how was the unfolding of this for you?
Mm. As always, top quality interviewer, state gold, A grade, number one in our hearts, number one in our mind.
Thank you.
Um, Actually, I haven't known about decentering men. I had not known about it. And may I just say too, I think this conversation also varies to decentering people in general as well. But
Hmm.
decentering men is a part of the equation too, because so much of society has revolved itself around, especially for women, revolved itself around men. So it's a lot more of a reality, but decentering people also comes into this too. And decentering work, as you said. It's just like decentering ourselves from fucking so much of life that we've been taught to give everything to. But anyway,
Yeah.
I became aware of it when there's a popular influencer. I don't know if that's what she goes by, or creator, but her name's Drew. And she actually talked about decentering men. She was having a conversation about it. Apparently, it's in her new book. For those that know who I'm talking about, you'll know. And I thought to myself, okay, this is interesting. But it didn't fully click in that moment until I was getting ready to go somewhere and I was observing the thoughts that were popping into my head because I still am practicing to navigate through feeling safe and comfortable in my style and even what my style is. And a lot of you have seen what I wear. That's my style. That's who I am. Color, crazy, don't care about patterns. I'll clash them. I don't give. And it's taken me time and the continuation of practicing to find comfort in that. But I was observing the thoughts and they were structuring themselves around the observation of men. What would a man think of this? And I think the next day I sat there and I thought to myself, how long have I been dressing for men? How long have I been revolving my outfits around the comfortability of people? That's where I said decentering people, but also men. I thought to myself, okay, took me down a rabbit hole. Makeup as well, centering that around men. Not wearing too much because the whole analogy that a man doesn't like too much. And I thought to myself, I've been unconsciously living for other people's desires for their own selves, but also prioritizing the opposite gender's views on how I show up and how I look showing up. And I thought, no one lives my life but me. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel like I need to do this? To seem sexier, to seem pretty. The attachment of worth and value to what other people think of me in that way. Am I attractive? Am I pretty? Am I sexy? That whole thing. Reliance on their validation of that. So if they see it and if they validate it, then I must be that. Then I must be all of those things. But if they don't, then I must not be. I can't be attractive and sexy and beautiful and all those words. unless a man validates it. And this was all this all one particular Sunday that I had all these thoughts, and I was like, "Okay, this ends here. This ends here because I don't allow anybody to try to control how I show up and how I exist and what I wear. So why would I put my own looks and self in the hands of anyone? Why would I put how I look in the hands of men? I live my life by who thinks I'm attractive and who doesn't. That's what I've been doing for such a long time. I think teenage age is when it starts for all of us. I think in primary school, to be honest. I think in primary school, yeah, I think primary school, this is a development existing. Yes, primary school, because I had a crush in grade 2, and I would always try to make sure that I looked so presentable for this crush. It starts young, and that's sad. The comfort of you is all you, essentially. The safety of you is all of you, and you're taught to externally look for that, externally seek that out, and only comfort yourself when that's been validated.
Mhm.
Nobody gets a say whether I should exist in this world because I'm pretty enough or beautiful enough or if I have too much makeup on or not. That's such an illusion. It's such an illusion to me. One day my body's going to be rotting in the ground. I honestly don't give, but I am practicing on healing the aspect of myself that's always gone externally, that has survived in some form, illusion form, I'll say, with the external and everyone else's perception of life, this, that, this, that. Who's to say? Who the hell is to say what's more and what's less and what should be more and what should be less? It's like that saying, more is less. Sometimes that actually annoys me, that statement, because people use it for people that don't like a lot of something, they use it. And then when I've heard that, it's always been met with, men don't like a lot of this. And it's like, why do they get the upper hand of your life? Even your partner doesn't live your pathway. They'll never walk your pathway as you. They can't be you. They're a part of the journey as a support team, like your friends. There are differences between friends and partnership. We know that, relationship, like platonic and romantic. We know that there are differences, but each provide support. But they can't walk your journey for you. So if everyone is trying to walk it for you and tell you you shouldn't do this for men, you shouldn't do that because of your parents, you shouldn't wear this, you shouldn't do it's so controlling. That's why I say it's a controlling society. It really is. Human beings control. But that pathway really just took me down to thinking about every single time where I've done that in my life, going out and consistently thinking about how I'm perceived, and not when it comes to women, but mostly men. Women have these certain behaviors of judginess, and we'll talk about that another day. Women have that behavior, but it's not solely focused on that. For me, it was always focused on how they were seeing me and if I was, like I said, attractive enough for them to actually notice my existence. And that's power that should not be given. That's a kind of power that should not be given at all to nobody. No one gets to determine that at all. And then just another point of this topic too, before I let Nina speak, while I'm dealing with my watery eyes. When I also took a deep dive, aside from the whole look aspect and existing for it, I thought about being taught these analogies too within the family and friendship area. And you might be able to relate to this, but it trickles down into so many areas of life, like with friendships, where girls will leave other girls for men. Like, will ditch them for men.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times
Yeah.
that happened in my teenage years, I hated it. I really hated it. My disdain towards it was for real. Because at that time, I knew I could do this to a friend of mine. So why is it so easy for other people to do that? The value of having a hookup or a relationship to me has always been more valued than friendships. And we've
Mm.
actually had this conversation before. We have, and people were like, well, friends leave. Friends do this. Friends hurt you. Anyone can hurt you, family, partner, human beings. This is a human experience. Human beings are flawed. As they say, perfection doesn't exist. Anyone can establish a foundation of harm and project in that. Anyone can do that, right? But the value of having a partner, it's always been so much more prioritized than friendships, which is why the struggles fall in line with that. So again, that trickled into that, and I thought, great, the realization of that. And then family as well, the prioritization of doing things for men, cooking and providing coffees, provide the coffees, set the table, just to give. I never understood why the women couldn't have the same treatment. I could never understand that. You massage your man's shoulders, and when you ask for it back, nada, nothing. It's just like the women just keep externally being taught to give their power and their energy. And I've seen it with the women in my family, constantly giving. And then they have chronic illnesses. They deal with so many physical health conditions, mental health conditions, because they're so drained from constantly giving and never also receiving, just having some balance. But then they still promote this stuff. It's interesting, this continuation of a mindset of this is so normalized to me that I don't have the questioning ability to think. I don't have, no, let me say this. I don't have the ability to think outside of something that has always been my reality because of the generations of this cycle that has been existing. And they promote it to us as the younger generation and saying this is how it should be. This is a normalization. And they teach you to do it. No fault. I have no fault on them. There's no fault at all. But the teaching of that prioritization of making sure that men are comfortable while I'm watching the women be uncomfortable. Their feet hurt, their back hurts, their neck hurts. Neck tension is a big thing in my family. Like, women will hold their shoulders up and grind their teeth.
Mm.
I've witnessed the uncomfortability to make sure that the men are comfortable. Decentering men is not allowing your body. No, let me say it like this. Decentering men is realizing that you're worthy of care, you're worthy of having your own value and confidence, self assurance, take care of self as well as others. It is a middle ground, it's balance, there's groundedness. I'll add more to that, but I'll let Nina speak.
You said it perfectly. Truly, I do agree that it starts probably in like what elementary, middle. I would say elementary, maybe even kindergarten. Honestly, I feel like it's always there. And obviously, when you like somebody, you want to, spice things up. But that's one thing. I think the thing that kind of made me, especially while listening to you talk, Ash, look back on my life a bit was, I was a kid that I would say never really felt like I got enough attention at home. And I hate that narrative, by the way, as well. I'll get into that in a sec. But when I had a crush, that was like my opportunity. Hold on, I have like a lot of fluff on my shirt because I have new socks on and they're like everywhere. But anyway, I digress a little bit of a side rant. Um, I, as a kid, tried so hard when I had a crush. And even then, I tried so hard to always look, like you said, pretty, quote unquote, pretty, because I thought that you had to look a certain way in order to be seen, in order to be appreciated, in order to receive what it is that I feel I really desired. And for me, so much pain came from that because now being an adult, I can look back on it and realize your worth is there regardless if somebody likes you or not. Your worth
Mm.
is there regardless of what you look like. And actually, just last night, and I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but I kind of thought like this hit a nerve with me, and I know the intention was good. I saw a video yesterday where a woman was talking about you should be try to focus on being ugly. And I, in the sense
All
of
that.
like, oh, you did?
Was it like a video with a quote in the middle, or was she actually just saying it?
She was laying in bed and there was like a text over the video. And it's like, you should be the number one threat.
Oh, the
Like,
same thing.
yeah, okay, good. Then you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
But I saw it, and essentially the video said something along the lines of you should like hone in on the most threatening you could be in this society, which is an ugly woman, because you will see how people just gloss over you and not see you and disrespect you. And that way it will take away the need for attention from others and rather you focus in on yourself. And I kind of had just a tiny bit of an issue with that because as somebody who grew up in the light of ugly, being the ugly duckling, never getting any attention, being laughed at for liking somebody, and the whole school bullying me for liking somebody. I'm like, ew, how could you? Ew, she likes you. I was that girl. And being treated that way is horrible. It's horrifying. It's traumatizing. It's one of the worst things that I think could possibly happen. Like it's one of the more severe types of, I don't even know what to call it. Is it bullying? Is it lack of respect? I feel like there's so much that goes into that dynamic, but it's one of the worst ways you can treat somebody, to make them feel like they're a monster instead of a human being. And I understand the sentiment of the quote of what was shared, and I agree with honing in on yourself and pulling energy back in on yourself. But I think the misdirection or the mistranslation for me personally is more so on the lines of you're not ugly regardless. There is no such thing as ugly because that's a concept. And usually that's wrapped around where you're living culturally. And then also depending on what your race is and what the kind of like idolized features and looks are. I know a lot of people talk about Eurocentric features. I can't speak to this morning. I apologize. I know a lot of people talk about Eurocentric features. However, I truly believe there's no such thing as ugly in this world. Everybody has beauty, everybody has worth. If you put your worth on what you appear, I think that takes a lot out of you as a person, as a human, as a character, as a soul, because there's so much more than just looks. That's a personal thing. That's a personal opinion. Everybody can disagree. That's fine. It's not like an attack or anything, but it's just.
Can't.
Hmm?
They can't disagree. We're not allowing it. Boundaries are set. No disagreements in this podcast episode.
Yeah. I just feel like the word ugly is ugly. That's it. There's no human being on this soul that's ugly unless you have a bad character, a bad personality, in which case that usually comes from brokenness or blindness to your actions or things that you haven't healed from the past. But I digress. Growing up, I constantly sought the attention of boys, of like, oh, but I need to be pretty just in case, there might be somebody that likes me. And I was never quote unquote pretty enough for nobody. To this day, I think like last month did a journal entry, and I was working through a lot of blockages in my life. I'm working on, making 2025 a good year. And so I'm prepping for it. I'm mentally preparing for it. I'm healing some stuff. And then I kind of had just like a moment when I was listing out fears, because that was one of the prompts I had to do in my journal. It's a guided one. And I looked at it and when I took a step back, I was like, wow, still, even after all this healing and all this time, there's so much indebted. I don't even know if it's self-conscious or what the word is that I'm looking for, but I have this thing within me still that is not as intense as it used to be, but still is present, where I care much more about what somebody else thinks of me, and that influences my opinion of myself. And that is, like Ashley has stated, not anybody nobody has the right to determine that over you. You have worth, you have value, and nobody can take that away from you. You're born with that. You have beauty. You're born with that. Even if it doesn't fit into, the projected media image or whatever you want to call it, you have beauty that cannot be touched. And decentering men falls in line for me with decentering anything outside of your own soul growth. And I'm sure the definition has many different aspects to it, and it means a lot of different things to many people. But for me, that's what it means, because anything that's distracting you from what's actually taking place on the inside doesn't or should never hold that type of power over you. And I think a lot of the discussion that I also see then on the opposite side of it is like, well, then you're being selfish. You selfish woman. In which case that
Dare
has
you live
a
your
lot
life?
of, yeah.
How dare you?
In which case that for me has so much correlations with how women were treated in history. But for me personally, it's not about being selfish. It's about being selfless. Because if I'm stopping to obsess about the way that I look and what other people could potentially think about the way that I look and appear and what I look like and what I wear and what I do this and how I speak, and then I have the opportunity to actually go inward and heal stuff and not be centered mentally around the ego self or the, how can I say, the illusion of self that our brain has conjured up. There is, for me, yourself, your soul, and then there's the mental interpretation of yourself. And that's the false self. That's the ego self. And so much of this world is constantly teaching about what you should focus on. And it's definitely mostly rooted in the false mental illusion of self. And for me, decentering men, decentering work, decentering anything from your soul space where you operate in true authenticity from the seat of your heart and your soul is not worth it. You have to be okay with the life you're living. Ashley has been a major, major catalyst within that, to the point where, by the way, this is the first time I'm telling you this as well. I'm starting to branch out more now with my fashion as well, and wearing and being interested in a lot more patterns and things that I typically wouldn't wear because what would people think of me? And, it's just so dumb. For example, this is a small thing and it's minor, but it's something that still is within me. And this is what I mean with how strongly other people's opinions can affect you. My mom growing up was always like, you can't wear horizontal stripes because they make you look, quote unquote, bigger, and men won't like that. Now, I come from a home of a single mom who doesn't center men around her, well, consciously center men within her sphere and within her life. She lives her life for herself, but even her has fallen into the trap of you should dress a certain way so that you look pretty in the eyes of somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it has affected every single woman all around the world. And you need to sink deeper within yourself. And I wrote something down yesterday that I want to say this real quick. I'm going to pull out my notes. Um,
No, that's so cute.
Yes, I wrote it down last night before I went to bed because it hit me after watching a video, and I was just like, this is beautiful. I have to just write down my thoughts, and if I'm able to share them today, I want to. And I essentially wrote down, your role and responsibilities can and will always be replaced, but the work you do inside of you is something that can't be taken from you. That deposit that's made when you develop your spiritual self cannot be taken. So when you work harder on things rather than working hard on yourself, you're wasting time and efforts on things that are fleeting and that don't really, in its true self, add more to you. Now, I'll let you speak in a sec, my friend. But so much of my life and my identity was wrapped around what I could do for other people, how I could be more for other people, how can I be a better listener, which these are great qualities. These are things that you can implement into yourself, but it shouldn't be the root of who you are, how you work, how you show up for work. Oh, I need to be a good worker. I need to work harder. I need to work longer. It's okay if I'm breaking down health within my body as long as I'm, my manager thinks I'm good, or it doesn't matter how uncomfortable I feel in this dress or in these heels because I look good for somebody and potentially that could give me a guy.
Mm.
You're neglecting yourself, you're leaving yourself, you're essentially in one way or another pushing who you are down for the sake of somebody else's approval. And so much of our society, and like Ashley has stated, it starts young, it starts when you're a kid, so that you don't know that it's happening, so that it's not the conscious thing that you're doing. And yet it still supports a system that is feeding off of your insecurities. And it is unfortunate because I think so much of us, if this didn't exist, we could live a lot more freely. We could be who we are rather than wear a mask 24/7 so that other people will find us more appealing or charming or attractive or worthy or whatnot. Your worth is inherent. It's not something that you have to earn. It's not something that you have to compromise yourself for in order to get validation from somebody else. And for me, this is just such a beautiful discussion and such a beautiful movement because we really do just always need to operate from our deepest self. And I don't know if I said this before, I will say it again. But I don't know if we can be 100% ourselves, truly, freely, open, fully, without any type of protection around us. I don't know if that's possible. If we can if we can walk into every space that open, I think there will always be aspects of us that will adapt to the environments that we're in, that will protect us. If you call it a mask, so be it. But I think it's about making the thickness of the mask smaller so that who you are shines through more fully rather than an image or a corporate image of you. You know how people talk about like corporate voice? Hello, thank you for joining us today. It's essentially the same thing. How can you ever receive what is yours? How can you live a life that's truly meant for you, regardless of what that looks like, if you're not being your authentic self? How can that
Mm.
happen? How can people that are meant for you show up in your life if you're not being your authentic self? If you're not going into the spaces that your authentic self wants to be in versus the what other people think the spaces you are occupying you should be in. It doesn't work. There has to be a distinction between who you are and what other people think. And like Ashley has also stated already, nobody can walk the walk for you. This is your life. Bon Jovi's playing now in the background. It's my life. Yes, it is. It's your life. And you have to live it fully and be yourself, however that looks like for you, whatever that means for you. Obviously, don't hurt anybody. But outside of that, and self control, a little bit of that, it's not about being selfish. It's about being selfless because the less you are occupied with how you could potentially look to a third party the more you can actually get down to your soul and see what's inside of you and what you actually really want for who you are and who you want to be and how you want to show up and your why. Most importantly, what is the reason? What is your why? What is your purpose? You're able to sit in your true authentic seat when you're not focused on the outside world as much and their projections onto you.
Mm. One of the reasons why I somewhat found myself in a certain position mentally is because I thought we all know that past elements show up when you're healing and they come with full force because they don't like what you're shifting. You can't blame them in a sense. It's a form of safety that they have. And I say they because I have a distinction. And I thought about the past experiences with people, and that is where my anger has come into it because when you're healing and you start becoming aware and opening up your eyes to the things that happened, and you sit there and you have to go through the grief process of it happening and thinking that you allowed it to happen. This was one of them. I thought back to all the experiences that I've had with men, and I thought to myself, because I placed my worth and value in their hands, people in general, but in this case, when I was around men, there was a different correlation with that. Because I placed it in their hands, I allowed in this process of normality for them to act inhumanely in a way. I won't even say that I allowed, I validated it because the priority of attractiveness was more important than the inhumanity that was being displayed, more than the
Mm.
inappropriate behavior that was being projected, more important than the words that were spoken that were just flat out disgusting and wrong and rude. I thought about those moments too, and I was like, the amount of times that happened when I was a teenager, being treated in such a disrespectful way and sitting back and thinking I can't say anything because I don't want this man to see me a certain way. I was never taught to speak up to people, but I could not speak up to men more than anything. Growing up with certain men that establish their behavior in such a dominant way, I couldn't speak up to men. So when certain things were projected where I wasn't treated as the human being that I am, I didn't say anything. I couldn't fathom saying anything because I didn't want to be seen in a certain light as a woman that yaps and groans and complains and is a drama
Mm.
queen. Because that's the correlation as well, is that if you say something,
Yeah.
you're a drama queen, you're trying to make a fuss, it's a joke at the expense of me and the comfort and safety of my space. The joke is at at the expense of my humanity. It's just all at the expense of me for you to have your little laugh and then you move on. I've got to process your joke. I've got to process your inhumanity. I've got to process your behavior. It's all good on the opposite end. They're fine. They can walk away and go about their day. Yeah. And then the other person has to rebuild, restructure, heal, process, assess, learn. And honestly, for some of the circumstances, only some, I'm glad they happened because they taught me where I was putting my worth and value extremely in the hands of others to the extent that this was being tolerated. It should never have been tolerated. You don't get to treat people like this. You treat them as a human being. They are human beings, living, breathing human beings that exist just like you do. But there was an what's a word I can think about? There was overvaluing men more than women. And that
Mhm.
is where this comes into decentering men. realizing just how much of that energy that you're giving to certain people because they've been prioritized and people have molded this image for you because it's been molded for them to see men in this light, this godlike, you know what, I'm going to say it, it feels like godlike energy where you can allow them to do whatever they please and don't be a drama queen about it. Don't have a sook. We talk about how men have been stigmatized when it comes to mental health and emotions. The same stigmatization was also played out to anyone that they were around. It was a continuation of that cycle. So for women, it was like, well, he just slapped you on the bum. You're being a sook about it. You're being a drama queen about it. It wasn't that serious, but it was my body that it was done to.
Right.
This
Yeah.
was my space that it was that was violated. I didn't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. I didn't feel validated for that to happen. So if I'm feeling that way, what's it got to do with you? I'm saying no because it's my space. It's such an ego bruise for people, I think. When you say to them, I think it really is an ego bruise when you say to them, I don't like that you did that. And they go, oh, it's just a joke. It's just, I think it's a comfort. I think it's a form of
Mhm.
comfort for self because you're uncomfortable with someone telling you what you did was wrong. I think it falls in line with accountability and responsibility. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like the inner child starts to hide itself because it's like I don't like being told that I've like hurt somebody. So I'm just gonna put my ego into this and say, well, you're just a drama queen, you're just a sook. Typical women. All they do is complain. The amount of times I've heard typical women, typical women, typical women. I could have been a millionaire from the amount of times I've heard that freaking sentence. What's typical women? What you've been taught typical women is. And the thing is, women were taught what typical women is because I hear the women in my family, how they talk about women and they say the exact same things that men say.
Yeah.
And I question the women that say this too. I say to them, where did you hear that from? Where were you taught that? And they go, oh, well, women, we're known for these. No, we're not known for these things. We're not dramatizing anything just because we have cramps. Like, cramps are a seriously freaking painful thing to go through. I don't understand how people don't. I don't understand how the generations before could never fathom the uterus shedding, like giving birth. You're pushing out a baby. Your vagina has to expand to 10 centimeters to push out a baby, and you don't think that's going to be painful? Oh, I just have to say this quickly. There was a video that I came across. I don't know if it was Love Island something, UK. I don't know where it was, but this man on the couch, I think I sent this to you. I think I did. He goes, women giving birth. Now you know what it feels like when a man has a common cold.
Are you serious?
Let's have a minute of silence.
That just tells me
It
about
wasn't a minute, but
everything about the level of intelligence in that human being, in that man. Oh my God.
common cold compared to pushing out a human being. Come on. You, come on, really? It has to expand to 10 centimeters to push out this human being. And even so, complications can happen. The baby can turn. They have to use forceps. So if you're already pushing out a baby and then forceps have to go in, you can tear as well. Which frustrates me to my gear. But this is the thing. Even women, I've heard women stigmatize that as well, just the same as menstruation. Because they've heard it from men. They've heard the same crap from men that this is too sooky, this is too drama. It's just the same crap over and over again. Too overly emotional, it all comes down to. That we are so overly emotional and all we do is complain. Can I just say that the one thing I've noticed is that the women that I've been around, they tend to speak in a certain way and say certain things. And I truly believe in my soul it's because they've never been heard, because no one listens and no one has ever listened to them. I've heard stories where, certain, I won't name who, but where some have spent most of their time preparing for other people. They have their own feelings, emotions. experiences, they were never allowed to actually sit down and have a conversation about them or be heard. If they were feeling a certain way, do you think they would have been able to walk out of the kitchen and say that to the men in the lounge room? They were never given a space to be heard. They were never given a place at the table to speak. And if they were, if there was complaints about their feelings and their emotions towards, this trickles down into how I wanted to towards people to not come across, oh my God, I really solidified this feeling within myself that I needed to harden up because I didn't want to be seen a certain way in front of people. I was so embarrassed when anyone would hear about she had an episode. This
Mm.
happened with Ashley, that happened, crying, anything like that. I was so
Mhm.
embarrassed
Yeah.
by it, especially around men, because I thought that I would look 10 times unattractive, that I would just
Yeah.
completely eradicate any possibility for myself because I'm showing emotion,
Yeah.
because I'm not doing my due diligence as a non-emotional woman. Like I'm just so good at my emotions. I'm just not a drama queen. I hold it down so greatly. You should see me hold it down. And then I go home and in my own space have countless breakdowns because I've been holding it for so long. So the consequences were just by tenfold for me while conforming to society, while being complicit for society, by by being complicit for men and for women. Just complicit for everyone else. I reaped the consequences. And I take responsibility as well. But I also take responsibility that I didn't know. I really had no clue and no idea that I was doing any of this. It just was so normal to do so. It was so freaking normal to be talked badly to and then just to sit there. Thank you. I'm so thrilled by your treatment. I'm going to just send so much love out to you instead of comforting myself and treating myself in such a good way because no, I'm going to give that to you instead and do my absolute best to appease you.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow I'll come and show more cleavage just so I'll be more accepted and validated by you.
Yeah.
Playing with that. And I feel like consciously, like me now, if I stood there to younger Ashley, I really would have kindly said to her, when you walk out of the house and your existence is for everyone else, when you get home and you're with yourself, that will always be the reality. So you will be alone with yourself. What happens then? You don't need to show more cleavage. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You were taught that this is what you should do, to wear less makeup, to show up a certain way. Don't wear this certain outfit. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't speak too loudly. Don't talk about bathroom habits because that's not ladylike. Don't be sick. I swear I couldn't fathom, and I'm still practicing to deconstruct that, being sick in front of men, blowing my nose in front of men. This is how
Mm.
in depth it goes to not be human in front of them. To not be human. And I struggle even doing that in front of people. I
Mhm.
struggled doing that in front of friends because I felt so unladylike if I showed imperfection. And it would trigger so much anxiety to show imperfection. Oh, Ashley, your regrowth is showing. Oh, no man is gonna like that. Need to dye my hair. Ashley, your makeup is sort of not even. Okay. I can't look at anyone in the face because I don't want them to see every little detail of my face and then just study that. I can't have people looking at me. God, it went so in depth with me that even just this was a part of this factor, this whole conversation. It's all conjoined. It's such a grief to deconstruct perfection and to reconstruct the validation that perfection doesn't exist. You've been taught a bunch of lies and you've taught yourself a bunch of bull. It doesn't exist. And you know what? If a human being can't accept my humanness, then you don't deserve to be in my space. You can take your you can take your perfection system that you're holding so dearly onto, and you can keep that in your own space then. Because I'm about, if I accept that with other people, if I accept that with Nina, if Nina blowed her nose, I feel nothing over that. Nothing, because it's human to me. So if I can accept that
Yeah.
about others, and I will keep practicing to accept that within myself, I will just keep practicing. I like the word practice more than trying, because practice it's a middle ground of validating that some days you're not going to do it. Some days you are. Some days I still hide. Some days I don't. You know, I just keep practicing to get more onto the side of this is human, this is valid, this is okay. Yeah. What do you
100%.
think?
Oh my
I saw
gosh,
you thinking.
I have so much to say because you triggered a lot of things. Um,
Hell, I was looking at her face sometimes, and there's this look that Nina has when she's really thinking in depth here. And I saw it at one point. I'm like, she's got a lot to say. So
you sparked so many amazing things within me. It just is mind blowing. But gosh, I don't even know where to begin. But one of the things that like really triggered my brain just now was the whole aspect of not having any imperfections, looking perfect, looking like a Barbie doll, and don't ever show your weak or your human side that has to be kept secret and away, and only your friends can see it because your man will leave you if you sneeze. But
you sneeze. When you
um,
said that.
the thing is, um, that mentality in my relationships has actually broken down a lot of connections in my own personal experience because there were many moments when I've had romantic partners where I was needing to cry, had to cry, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable because I was like, oh my God, he's gonna think I'm ugly if I cry. And I'm like, it mentally on these times, like, are you crazy? Like, you're fine crying. It's fine. You're a human being. No, it's going to make him uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. um, but in bits of connection, your quote unquote imperfections, you being human, I still am covered with fluff. Just don't mind me. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're seeing like white dots on me everywhere, just don't mind that. But when you're in a relationship with somebody that genuinely wants to be with you and is healthy, and the same goes with friendships, honestly, they want to see the raw parts of you. They want to see who you are. They want to see you in your broken places. They want to support you. They want to be there. If they're truly there for you, which they should be, it requires you being authentic with your feelings and yourself and who you are and how you feel, and being like communicating that, bridging the gap between those things can be very tricky, and it is still something that I'm personally also working on, will probably always will work on. Something that also really sparked my brain is the aspect that I have always grown up with, which is whatever darkness a man can bring into a relationship, you have to turn it into light, into opportunity. You can't disrespect like his demons. You have to be his ride or die. You have to support him when he's good. Yeah, like yeah, support your partner, no matter who it is in a relationship, especially when they have mental health struggles. But don't make it a thing that a man can use, abuse, mistreat you, do whatever, go with whatever, cheat on you, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Outside the bounds of a relationship, you should never act, actually, inside the bounds of a relationship, you should never act this way. So don't misconstrue a man's quote unquote darkness. He's just morally gray, which is also a whole thing. I'm not even going to get into that. But don't excuse that as you having to be kind of the sunshine. You have to make everything perfect and okay at the expense of who you are, and you and your self-worth and your priorities and your boundaries. You shouldn't have to sacrifice that for the sake of somebody else. This is something I heard a while ago, and this is something that I want to bring to you guys as well. When it comes to romantic relationships or any type of relationship, but especially romantic ones, because this applies to me in romantic ones, the people that are supposed to be in your life won't need for you to have to sacrifice your mental health for them. Just make that a little pinpoint, put that on the side of the board, okay? You don't have to sacrifice your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, who you are, your morals, your boundaries, your self-respect. None of those things should be compromised in any type of healthy relationship, platonic or otherwise. Now, there's rooms to grow, there's rooms of communication, absolutely. Nobody's perfect, everybody's imperfect, all of that, yes. But don't, like, the thing that drives me crazy, and this is where I was so much in my teenage years, was like I always gravitated towards the brooding, dark type that was like struggling and mistreating women. But I can change him. I can make him happy. I'll bring the sunshine in his life, and then he'll see that I'm worthy. No, he will not see that you're worthy. He will see that he can use you to be an instant gratification to whatever it is he's not addressing in his own life. And that is something I've had to learn the hard way, which is why I'm sharing this to anybody listening. But long story short, there's so many power dynamics within the masculine. Actually, let me get into this too. Masculine and feminine energy, when you're constantly operating of giving, 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 and not having anything received, or having anything be reciprocated within any type of dynamic, but especially with a man, that puts you in an unhealthy masculine energy in and of itself, which then makes you feel uncomfortable with expressing emotion, with listening to your emotions and even identifying what they are, with knowing what you like and what you don't like, because eventually the longer this goes on, the more confused you will get about what is yours and what is not, what is for you to carry and what is not, what is your quote unquote responsibility and what is not. You can never, I say this with a lot of respect because I know this is difficult for a lot of us, you can never heal somebody through your love alone. That person has to take on that responsibility themselves, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody, if you're friends with somebody and you're in that dynamic where they're being really mean or they're being really rude, oh, but he's just having a bad day. You can have a bad day and you can have a shit time communicating, sure. But that person, no matter who they are, if they care about you, would never, ever make you sacrifice your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your physical health. Okay? Good. That's been addressed. Next slide. But it's actually really sad when it comes to me personally, looking back at my younger self, a teenage self, and the thing that I've learned recently, and this is something that I still need to address, but it's something that has given me a great amount of relief, is that we need to also honor the aspects within ourselves that seek love that much or seek the attention of others that much, because all we're really wanting when we look for attention outside of ourselves is really just the validification. I don't know the words today. The validity within our own soul. That's what we're really looking for. We're looking for people who can help build us up, especially when we're not in a place where we feel full within ourselves. And so I am a person who is very hard on myself. And when I've done this recent journal that I discussed earlier, I really was met with like, all these years, all this work you're doing, and you're still operating in this space. When is it ever going to change? Like it went into critical mindset, critical voice. And then I was like, you know what? After a couple days and I had that critical voice in my head, it just became so heavy and I just became so drained. And I was just like, let me just be messy. Let me just have a hard time with some things. I don't need to be perfect. And that's kind of when I journaled again. And I was like, maybe instead of bullying myself to be different or changing or not having things like this affect me, which by the way, it's going to affect everybody because this is a societal issue, not just a personal issue, especially if you're a woman. I'm going to give myself the space to accept that there's an aspect of me that seeks love and wants to give it so fully and freely, but also understand that I can't give it without boundaries. I have to put boundaries on myself. I have to put boundaries on people, and that will always be a thing that I'm working on, and it has worked and it's going well. But there will also be a side of myself, maybe child self, whatever, that is still healing, that is still evolving. And thus, I need to be a little bit more empathetic to that aspect within myself that sometimes does the wrong thing, sometimes looks for bits of attention in the wrong ways. It's not evil. It's not, anything life threatening or that compromises who I am. However, these are behaviors that can change and will change throughout time, but I can't expect that to happen in one go and a snap with the snap of a finger. You know what I mean? We have to also be empathetic and caring and kind to ourselves in the moments where I don't want to say feel weak because I don't think this is a weak thing, but where we are maybe a little bit more insecure than on other days, or feel bad about ourselves, or looking for attention, or wish we could have somebody that makes us feel good or can pour into us. Those things are not inherently wrong because I think obviously this depends on person. We are all here to be kind to one another. We are all here because we need relationships to each other in one way or another. It doesn't have to be romantic, but we all need somebody else to also pour into us. And I think so much of our world as women is about what we do for other people. Ashley has said this already. So much of what we've grown up in is always for the sake of somebody else. So when we sit down and we make these realizations like decentering men or decentering anything that takes our focus off of our true selves and healing ourselves and loving ourselves fully, it also requires us having empathy and patience with ourselves when we're not where we want to be, feel how we want to feel, or think about things the way that we wish we were to think about things. Sometimes we will mess up, sometimes we will have bad days, and that's okay. It's human, it's part of the process, and you can't expect to dismantle an entire, I don't even know how long this has been going on, patriarchy, unhealthy toxic masculinity, the projections onto that has been placed onto us as women. We can't expect to dismantle that in one go, in 1 second. It takes time, it takes generations. And us being able to have these types of conversations is, for me, a big step into a better future, a better self. And I will say this. I see a lot more women talking about dressing for the woman gaze, and wearing clothes that make us feel pretty and flowy and kind and cute and whatever we want to feel, in the moment. On the other end, I know there's like this whole mob wife trend that where you look evil and slim and like slick and ooh, she's scary. Like I know that that's also a thing that people are going for. I think at the end of the day, no matter what it is that you do, no matter what practical tips that anybody can give you, if you sit down and focus on what is true for yourself and what you would like, where your passions, interests, fashion style, things like that, if it's centered around what makes you happy, then that is closer to the truth and closer to authenticity rather than what somebody else is doing. Ashley has said this as well. There's going to be a lot of women as well that's probably won't react nice to stuff and might be, a bit weird. Weird is not the word, but I'm just going to go with that one. But at the end of the day, if you're able to sit with yourself and go from an authentic place, no matter what that is in terms of the way you look, the way you want to appear, fashion, music taste, passions, hobbies, career, whatever it is you want to do, as long as it's centered in you and your authenticity, it's the right thing to do. Unless it hurts people, and then don't do that. But that's always going to be the disclaimer. As long as that doesn't hurt anybody, you're fine. Go. Be wild. Be free. Be selfish. You woman. How dare you?
I just realized that I've had my mic muted the entire time, so I was probably speaking. There were some points that I was responding to what you were saying, and I looked down and I'm like, oh, okay. It's just going to look like a silent me reacting. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Silent reaction. It was beautifully said. Everything you said was beautifully said.
Thank you.
And just to last little add-on from me, as I was listening to what you were saying and thinking, the female gaze still has healing to do as well. And that really
Yeah.
stems into individual awareness and insecurities, obviously, limiting beliefs. Obviously, it goes down that pathway because women still, as well, carry on a lot of these belief systems and hierarchy.
Yeah.
I've known people that have allowed men to perpetuate certain behaviors and have allowed it to happen and validated that behavior. But when it comes to women, it's such a different tone. It's a different environment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back, I find it interesting. Why? When it shouldn't be allowed, no matter the gender. If anything is done in harm, it shouldn't be allowed, no matter who they are, brother, father, uncle. It shouldn't be allowed, period. But it's just, I don't have the answers, but it's been, no, how do I say it? It's been interesting observing the traits of society and human beings and what we allow and for the reasons that we allow it. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, as I said, human and what's human. You know, in certain cultures and backgrounds, and you're probably aware of this as well, even in my own, men have such different, they get different seats to women. There's different analogies, there's different values to women. You know, boys are more appraised than women. And I noticed it. When I was young, I noticed it, but I never questioned it because I didn't understand the in-depth reasoning towards this. It's a generational thing as well, too, but enough so that no matter what they do, women will validate it. That's my problem, is that I watched women validate their behavior, men as well, of course, but I watched women create excuses for it and explanations for it. And when someone's partner projected a certain thing my way, which I spoke about in the episode about suicidality, that behavior was validated. And when I thought about all of this too, I thought to myself, if I had a partner who projected inhumanity onto anyone else, it's not going to be validated by me. Because to me, it is about human. I don't care who you are. No matter how much I love you enough to tell you that your behavior is not okay. That is also my love. I don't tolerate making anyone's spaces unsafe. There's no reason to do that. So if someone around me is doing that, no. Friend, family, partner, no matter who it is, it's not validated. And that took decentering men. That took me practicing that to get to this point of it's what is human. You may say this conversation as, because some people will, it hits the emotional feeling. You may take this as this is another episode about men, and it's such a negativity towards men. It's not about that. It's about what's human.
Yeah.
Every single conversation that we have is about what's human, and it's the behaviors of humanity that we are talking about. but also the behaviors of genders that we're talking about, the behavior of men, the behavior of women, what has been tolerated and what has been allowed, and what should not be tolerated, what shouldn't be validated and what shouldn't be allowed. It also brings into the conversation validating, what's the word? That also conjoins to family units validating predatory behavior. And that falls in line with this. It conjoins with how much value we give men enough to allow behaviors to happen, allow inhumanity to happen. And so much so that it blinds people from humanity, from the words that they use to describe how much they love their loved one, but that's not love. If you're allowing your loved one to be harmed this way, that's not love. That's compliance. That is you continuing this belief system that for some reason this gender deserves to have a free will, to have free will, to be able to get away with everything, to be able to do what they please, and that to be validated. And this is within certain cultural backgrounds as well as society, friendship groups. I've seen it too many times to say otherwise. Women weren't allowed. I was told off. But when something would happen around the people that could easily tell me off, they never easily told that person off. Why was it more comfortable to tell me off than to tell the man off? Why is there such an unbalanced dynamic? That's what we're talking. That's what we're advocating for, to bring balance. It's so uneven. It's so uneven. So every conversation that we have is about advocating for balance. We advocate for balance amongst human beings. That's the purpose of these conversations. And if it's too difficult for you to process that, then maybe take some time away and come to the table when you're able to really listen and observe what's being said. When I have these conversations with my brother, it's not a form of attack towards him, and he knows that. It's advocations on there are certain behaviors that I know that cause imbalances, and it causes rifts, it causes issues, it causes breakdowns of relationships because there's unfairness. People are feeling it, and you feel it. When someone is doing more than you feel it. When a friend is calling you up more than you, they feel it. They feel the unbalance. It's the same thing with this dynamic. And I've had conversations with him about that. It's not a personal attack, it's about advocacy for what the reality is, what's been unfolding, and where we can do better. And we can do better. We've been evolving. We can do better. We are. Women are now speaking more about the advocacy of each other in the accepting spaces that they're creating, right? That is steps forward. You know, we have men joining the conversation. That's steps forward because it's not just validating women, they're validating themselves, they're validating their mates through through human empathy, compassion,
Yeah.
support, passion, etc., etc. So these conversations are something to think about because I think a lot of us are unconsciously sitting in these spaces and leaving our friends for men. You know, you've seen the stories online from certain celebrities, Ariana Grande as an example. You know, the difficult thing that I've spoken about before, that I've spoken about before, is that people will do anything but sit in uncomfortability, even if that uncomfortability has to last a while. When you are dealing with other human beings, and let's say you've fallen for someone, but that person's dating your friend, you know, and that friend's partner likes you as well, go about it humanely. There are ways, because I've heard it, I've seen it. that people have gone about things humanely, that practices to respect, hear, see, and validate everyone that is a part of this situation. Okay? That's what this is about, validating everyone that's a part of the situation and not doing it inhumanely where you harm someone and then they have to cope with what you have done. It doesn't need to be like this. I know sometimes, and I've experienced it too, I've done it too. I know sometimes it's like driving on a road and then all these things come onto the road and you've got to like swerve and swerve and swerve trying to miss everything. Like sometimes you're not able to see the pathway ahead. And then sometimes you've got to learn from that lesson. Like, I'm not going to invalidate that the human experience, learning can come from that. But it's about, like I said, practicing, trying, keep it in mind. Even if you have to get uncomfortable to do so, sometimes you will have to get uncomfortable to validate that you're friends with human beings, you're a human being, your partner's a human being, everyone's a human being. They have feelings, they have emotions, they have past pain, past trauma, even present trauma. We can do things differently and we can do it better. We truly can. It doesn't have to be this mountain of suffering. It doesn't need to be that way at all. So, in my last words for this episode, it's really about observing what you are doing. No human being is worth harming the people that you apparently love. That's not love, then.
Yeah.
Or it's love, but you have conditions. You have insecurities and issues that you're projecting into that.
Yeah.
Just, it doesn't hurt to observe yourself because, I mean, to project this outlook that you're a kind human being also means observing yourself, observing where you need to see the spaces that are not as kind as what you're trying to put out there. It's really about looking at self as well. You're a kind person, but that also means seeing self too, right? No one deserves the hierarchy. No one deserves the pedestal. Everyone is equal. And the people that try to enforce you to put them on a pedestal, they're the ones that need to be knocked off at the most, honestly. And they'll do it themselves, may I just say. I've seen it happen. They do it themselves. But nobody, nobody gets the pedestal. Nobody. Not a man, not a woman, or a celebrity, or any other gender gets a pedestal. So if you're finding yourself thinking about where you're centering men, it's a start to start seeing potentially where you are and where that's potentially harming yourself. That's maybe a point to start with, is harming self, because then you're able to expand that to see outwards where that's also invalidating, potentially invalidating the people around you, because it does ripple effect. You just to give a quick example, where it ripple effects is that if you center men so much that you're in a space like, let's say, a bar, and your friend's like, I need to leave, I'm not comfortable, but you think all these hot men are here, I'm not leaving. Like, I'm not going to take myself out of this space for you. Observation. You have a friend that you apparently love and care about that's telling you that they need to leave a certain situation. And you're thinking about this particular thing as the hierarchy, that there are so many men in this bar, they're the priority. Why are they the priority? When you have a friend that's sitting there that's uncomfortable, that's feeling a certain way, who's the priority in that moment? And why are they the priority? And the issue is the men have been the priority in those spaces. Men, I wouldn't say that it's a large part of society now because people are more aware, but I still think it happens. I still believe that it happens.
Yeah.
So it's about thinking and observing. Start small, but why not? A lot of this stuff isn't for the highest good of you, so why not?
I agree.
Yeah.
And if I may also just give like some practical advice for anybody out there listening, um, as Ashley has said, prioritize your personal self growth, your self discovery. Find where your interests lie, where your hobbies are, your passions. Reflect on your values, your beliefs, without filtering through what other people want from you, what men want from you, etc. And then also a big, I've said this earlier in the podcast, a big help in with my relationship with myself was also my friendship with Ashley. So cultivate strong, supportive female relationships. If you know good friends, build them up, be there for each other, support each other. Also, as we are also doing ourselves, is unpack gender norms, challenge societal expectations, reject toxic masculinity, and really empower yourself, take control of your narrative, own your voice, your body, your choices without needing to explain or justify them to anybody else. And then also, obviously, practice self love. Body positivity is a big thing as well. Um, Embracing yourself where you're at, having self care rituals that honor your physical, emotional, spiritual well being, redefine your beauty standards. Like all of this really is just like a package deal in decentering men. It's like a,
Really.
yeah. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but either way, it
Good
requires a
spiel.
lot of, yeah, it requires a lot of solo time and a lot of introspection, but you can do it. The tools are there. And there will be people, if you feel like you don't have people around you who will help you support that journey within you, then maybe it's time to change that. And in your evolution of self, the people that won't be able to support you or be there will just have to be left in that season. But you can do it, and any person who really is rooting for you will support you. I'm sure of that. And if not, then we're always here as well. So you're never alone. There's a whole band of women out here who want to continue this movement, honestly. So
Yeah. You might have that. You might get resistance from something that is just moving through our society. Just to know,
yeah,
just to say this too. You might feel resistance within yourself, and you might feel resistance from other people when you have these conversations. Because I guarantee I've had these conversations with women, and they think that it's an attack against men. They instantly think that all of this is just to bring men down. That's the first thing that they think of. And it's like, no, that's not the case. This is about human and balance. This is about the things that have existed that have not progressed society down a good path, that have caused more harm than good. Harm that, honestly, from beyond your point of view, it is beyond that. It's way beyond your point of view. It's way beyond your eyesight. Your what is it? Line of sight? Yeah. It's way beyond your line of sight how in depth this goes. They're talking about chronic illnesses now and how women get diagnosed in the first place, like how all this is happening. There are more conversations now on the harm of the evolution of society, how that has affected the human body. So these conversations are in depth and needed for more reasons than just surface level based, for the health, the true health of humanity. Because like I said, just as my last point, I notice the health issues within the women around me, and they're dealing with it every day and they feel like they have to. So the continuation of that, it can't be a thing for the health of future generations. No.
yeah,
So if there's resistance, just know we're still learning, still practicing, and that potentially may happen. So it's about you solidifying your space
yeah,
and what works for you. Okay. What works for you, we can have pointers, but it's what works in you creating a safe space for yourself with what you're advocating for and what you've become aware of. Not everyone is at your level. Not everyone will be at your level. Some people are so stuck with where they're at, even comfortable. Nothing's going to shift that. Nothing has shifted that. So just remember, solidify your space. Anything that it gets projected your way, it's actually not personal. We think it is, but it's only coming from their comfortable spaces, from their comfortable thoughts and mindsets and systems. I'll end that there for myself.
Yes. That was
Yeah.
really, really great. I loved everything we touched upon because it is so necessary. And I do hope that it can provide more relief and focus on self again in a healthy way because it's so necessary, you know?
It's incredibly necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about mental health and stuff, so it is
Yeah,
necessary.
absolutely. But thank you guys for joining us today. Again, we loved this conversation. We are happy to continue it with you guys in the comment section below, wherever you see this. Thank you again. And until next time, my friends.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.